Hey everyone, thanks for returning. This video, or this series of videos I'm going to do is over a game that I picked up at Gen Con, and I've been kind of going through it, you know, learning the rules and stuff. But this is something I want to kind of break down and do section by section. And so how I'm going to do this is, on the bottom of the screen here, you're going to see what we're covering in this video. And so the game that we're going to be taking a look at is this big box game right here. And I say big box because it's kind of wide, but it's heavy. It's heavy. So it's Folklore, the Affliction. And so we're going to take a look at this. So I am going to do a review at the end of all these videos as I go through the rules and the components and character building and yada yada yada. Okay. And so let's take this on the table.
With all the cards sitting here, I'm going to go through the ability cards first and explain how these work. So I'll move some of this other stuff out of the way. Zoom in on these cards. So that's the back of the ability card. And so there are some character specifics ability cards. These are the ones that the characters would start with. So for instance, I have this Avenging Madman's card. Okay. And it says the name of the card, who it's for, what it does. And then down here, there's different symbols. And so this symbol means that it can be used at any time. When it doesn't have this symbol, it means you can only use it during your turn. At least that's how I'm understanding it. And then tells you once per round, and this is how many power points it costs to use it, because it's an active ability. There's active ability and passive ability. There's use it anytime, or use it multiple times. It says uses with the infinite symbol. Use once per round, once per fight. And then see, there's another one, the Avenging Madman. So it'd be another starter card. Again, 1 power point, once per round, and then at any time. And that means that can be used on another player's turn. And so, okay, here's Angelic Fist. It's holy. It's an active ability here. It costs 3 power points to use. And then it says once per fight. Okay. And then again, the name of the card. This word up here, these words up here. See, it says fierce. This one says revenge. Those are the key words. And in the rule book, there's a really good section that shows you the keywords and what they are towards the back of the book. So you don't have to like traverse through the whole book trying to find this information. And then there's anthropology, and it says learned. It's keyword. Reroll a failed skill check, and it's an active ability, and it does not have the use at any time. So I'd have to use this on my turn. Or when it specifies here, so skill check. When I fail a skill check, then I can use this once per round. So let's go look for. Okay, here's a new one. So this is a melee, or a fighting ability. So it's melee. See the melee symbol there. It's not a use at any time. Once per round, costs 2 power points. Right, here's a passive card. Again, you have the name, the keywords, what it does. There's nothing in these slots here. Some may, some may not. This is not the power points. You do not actually use power points for passive cards. They actually cost ability points to buy or to use. Because say you may pick up the card somewhere and you have to pay its cost to learn it. And so there'll be 3 ability points. And some of these cards you may have to pay the ability points to buy as well. And at least that's how I'm understanding it from the rule book. See if there's anything else. See, once per fight, once per fight, once per round. Another passive with a melee symbol. And it says that it's not used at any time. But up here it says it's revenge. Your feral ways have degraded you into biting your enemies. You may make an extra attack during your turn. On a hit, inflict 1d4 damage. So that's pretty good. And so that's something I would get to use automatically on my turn if I wanted to use it, because I would not have to pay the power point, because this is a passive. And so that would be my ability points to learn this spell, and that's it. I think that's a really good feature. Alright, here's one. Is active, but it has the infinite use. So I can use it multiple times. And it costs 2 power points. It says remove the cursed or the transformed status from your character. And transform means that you transform into a werewolf, I do believe. See if I can find another card that so once per round, once per fight, once per fight. I think that's it. And then here's another infinite use with the range symbol. And I'm not quite sure what range is, like how many spaces away that is from the character. But I'm going through the rule book to figure that out, because there's a skirmish where I don't think range would necessarily matter, because when you skirmish, that's all RPG setting. There's no map, no miniatures. But when you do an adventure, that's when you actually pull out the maps and stuff. So, and then the ability points, you get those. This is something I had to go through the rules to find out, which didn't take me too long. On the back of these cards here, the character booklets. Okay, you have your lore tree. Let me back up a little bit. Okay, you have your lore tree. And as you hit certain points, so once you get 200 lore, you can pick either A or B on these cards, but you start to gain ability points. And these ability points are used to buy these passive, and I'm assuming some of the active cards, but like for instance, when you get to 500, you can either choose the channeler ability or the other channeler ability. There's telekinetic, and kind of go back and forth. You can choose one from this side or one from this side, but we'll take a look at that later. I was just really wanting to talk about the AP here, which is ability points. I want to say action points because most games when I say AP is action points, but it's actually ability points. So, and the book says to keep them in alphabetical order because you'll be going through them at various places in the story. So keep these in alphabetical order. You don't draw them randomly. And the next card that we have are the item cards. So you have the back of the item card and the ability card. Sorry, I didn't show you, but that's the back of the ability cards. So back of the item cards, in the front of the item cards, you have the picture, the name, item slot, which shows like if it needs to go to a specific part on your character sheet, like on the back of the character sheet. It actually tells you where you can write down some of your equipment. Here, I'll show you what I mean. So for instance, head, neck, chest, back, arms, all here. That's where you'd write the equipment. But this one does not have a specifier. And then here it says the effect. So this one gains 5 Vita. So you would gain 5 Vita. And then this is the cost to have it. And when you go to town again and you want to sell your items, they sell for half the cost. So this would be 5 coins. And a consumable means that once you use it, it's discarded. And so the same thing here. Recover for Vita. So there's a difference between gain and recover. When it says gain, that means that you can actually go over your life points. Vita is life points, so you can actually gain like a bonus hit points. I think like in D&D that's what they call them, bonus hit points. And so you gain 5 Vita here, whereas it says recover 4 Vita. When you recover, if you're already at your max, you cannot gain any more. And so if you were 2 below max and use this, you'd only be able to gain 2 points. And then this one's kind of odd. I haven't seen this one yet. It says Cat's Eye. It says sell at the market to receive 1d6 5 coins. And so the number of coins that you would get would be obviously based on this. It doesn't say what it would do, other than it's probably just like a jewel. And it's got a really neat graphic on it. And same thing with the diamond, so there's different stones that you can pick up. And here's some equipment. Now down here, if you notice, it says feet. And it's 30 coins, and it's protective. So you have protective, consumable, and weapon. And so there's another consumable. Let me see if I can't find, and there's stuff in here for ingredients too, and I'll show you some of those cards later. But like there's a garlic card here, gold cup, Greek fire, and health tonic. Okay, now this is what I was looking for. The consumable, the holy water. I was showing you the holy water symbol in the one video I did with the components, but this determines how many uses you have. And so on the token, you have this symbol on it, and you would rotate it. So I would rotate it with 4 pointing towards my character to show that I have 4 uses. Then I'd rotate it when I used it once, rotate it again when I got to the 1, and then eventually I would discard it. And this can be a ranged weapon. And you would roll a d4 for its effect, and then it costs 10 coins, again 5 coins to sell. And then the weapons. There's also enchantments. So here's a weapon. It's a melee. It goes in one hand, so you can either use a one-handed weapon or 2 one-handed weapons, if I remember correctly, if the rule said that, and then either a 2-handed weapon. And this gives you a d4 to roll plus 1 for damage. Trying to go into the rules and see what it says about the hand. It says item slots located. The item is equipped either in hand or in a character's equipment slot. Two-handed items, 2 hands, take up both hand slots. So if we remember going back to this sheet here, there's a hand. There's 2 hand slots. And this weapon here would be 2-handed. And you'd roll a d6 for damage. It's melee, 50 gold. It looks like all the weapons are either going to do d4s, d6s, d6, d4, yep, so. And there, like this one is a 2-handed sledge. It gets a d6 plus 2. So that's pretty nice. Weathered cloak, so that'd be armor for your back. And then here is a steel cuirass. It goes to the chest. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I can look up any specific card that you would like and talk about it. Then here's some leather strips. Again, you can do some crafting. And for an example, I have the crafting a recipe pack. It says recipes and crafts. This deck consists of 2 types of item cards, which should be shuffled into your existing deck, which I haven't done that, obviously. Recipes and augments. And so there are cards in here. Okay, here we go. This card here tells you what you need to make this.
So components from Apothecary. 1 Quicksilver, 1 Mandrake Root, and 1 Pyrite. Result augments a protection item to provide a +5 defense. And there's other cards in there like that. So you can look at all these scrolls. And so I think that's a really neat component of this game, is that you don't only just get to find stuff, you get to make stuff. I don't think I've actually seen that in any board game. Obviously I've done that in like role-playing games and video games, but never in a board game. So this adds a really unique aspect. Creativity level is through the roof with this game. I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but obviously we're getting there. And my interest is piqued more and more as I go through all these components. And then world event cards. These just add thematic flavor to the game. Again, another cool component of Folklore, the Affliction. They created this deck so that way when you start a story, you draw the top card after you shuffle it, and that is in effect until you change the chapter of the story. And so like for this one, actually I'll go to a random one. Let's pop out that one. Okay, Seasons of Flame Light. It says a time of enlightenment and holy things, also a time of celebrate midsummer, the longest days of the year. All characters receive a +1 faith and are not affected by darkness during this season. That would be a great card to have, especially if you travel off-road at night. Alright, and I'll show you some of these. Like, I have another video where I actually go through the character creation, but I don't actually break down everything completely. And so you have, let's say, the Avenging Madman. Okay, you would choose which focus, so it'd give you a set of special abilities depending on which route you went. It tells you your starting equipment here, and the location items. Okay, and so I'm not sure why there's check boxes in here. I have to find out if you can only use those once, but they're location extras for this character. Each character is going to have their own specific location extras. And so like this one says, drunk and disorderly, due to your sometimes uncontrollable outburst of rage, you must roll a d10 whenever you sit or visit an inn. On a roll of 1 or 2, you have one too many beverages and start a bar fight. Oh, excuse me. The group must skirmish with an angry mob. They should have said with an angry mob, but you know. And you cannot defend during the combat. And so there's different other things like the Tinkerer. Fit for 50 coins, the armed guard bracers item. +3 defense. I'm assuming that's why you only get to use once. That's what I'm kind of thinking. You only get to use it once because there's a checkbox. After you get the armed guard bracers, you probably wouldn't be able to sell it. Or, I mean, you could sell it, but you only get it once. Brass knuckles, high boots. Okay, and on the back, there's your lore tree. And so as I showed you before, the AP, which I didn't realize this before until I was going through the rules trying to figure out what AP was, you get ability points here that you can use to spend on those abilities, the passive abilities, or even, you know, any ability card, I do believe, because you have to learn them before you can use them. And then the lore level. And so the way I think it's set up in the book is that once you reach 100 lore, which it seems pretty easy to do, which I'll explain as we go through this, you can choose 1 or 2. 1 or 2, 1 or 2, 1 or 2, 1 or 2. So there's definitely some choices that you can choose from. And so for 500, it says here that I'm assuming you get to choose either one of these two or one of these two. I have to look and see if there's a specifier in the rules, because that just seems a little odd, because everything else is 1-to-1 ratio except for here. So and then next I will go into
prayer cards. So prayer cards and ritual cards. They're opposites according to the thematics of the game. So rituals are found throughout the game. Prayers are used from like holy resources. I guess that's just the easiest way of putting it. And so on your prayer card, you always draw them randomly. It says help the ethereal find their way home. All non-affliction lose 2d for vita and are banished on a d10 plus 8. A banished target is removed from combat, granting no rewards, ignores ethereal. And so on here, if I go to the prayer card, it says prayers are age-old mantras that contain divine power. They hold true power within and can provide aid to those of the faith. Rituals, which are these cards here, and if you can see the prayer card here, ritual card here, says rituals come from old manuscripts and arcane works. In some cases from the Necronomicon itself, an ancient book holding great power. Its origins dark and obscure. Many of the pages were torn out and scattered around the world. By some unknown entity, excuse me. For both prayer and rituals, each page contains different rite which may be used then discarded. On a character's turn, if they possess a prayer, they make a faith check. And so I'll show you I'll get a hero card out right now, because I'm going to go through these anyways. So and it's based on their skill. And so like here you see skills, and then so when they do a skill check, they would roll, making me get into that little box of tokens and stuff where the dice are. They would roll a red d10. Okay, and so on this card it says that I have to get a d10 plus, or sorry, on a d10 roll I have to get 8 plus, and then it can banish the target. This is a banished target is removed from combat. Okay. It says lose d4 Veda and are banished on a d10 8. Okay, are banished. So a banished target is so okay. That's really neat how they worded that, because there's a period here too. It says lose 2d4 Vita, like the creature will, and are banished on a d10 roll of 8 plus. And then it tells here what banished means. And so they really want this, like Greenbrier Games, the way they did this, it seems like they don't want people to keep going back and forth between the rule book, because they've done a lot of this, put the rules on stated things like the cards on the tokens. So that's a really good feature. And I'll show you that card. And so you would roll the d10. So going back to the rules, what it says, make a faith check specified on the prayer card to attempt to activate its power. If they possess a ritual, they make an occult check. If the check fails, the character is unsuccessful in activating the card, but the prayer ritual is not lost. Okay, so if you're unsuccessful, you don't have to discard the card. Once it is successfully performed, it is discarded. During combat, an attempt to use a prayer or ritual takes an act. So I'm guessing an act means an action. And that says, meaning they cannot attack and use their mystic knowledge during the same round. So that's important to know when you're fighting. It takes the place of fighting or using the mystic knowledge. Prayers may be purchased at the church or the crossroads world map location. Rituals are gained by exploration and completing stories. And I think the location is designated. Well, let me see here. I'm reading kind of going through the rules. Alright, so as I reread it, you have to roll for the check here. Faith 9. I missed this earlier. So kind of go back to what I said. So I roll a Faith 9, and on a Faith 9, this activates here. And then I would roll a die again. And then on a D10 roll of 8 or more, I would banish the target. Okay, that makes sense. So remember, when you do a ritual or a faith, the check is at the bottom. That's the number you have to roll. Some cards, like this one, has an additional roll. Lose D10 for Vita and are banished on a D10 8+ roll. Because this would make no sense if this says D8 here and this requires a 9. Because that would be an automatic. So the way I'm reading this is that you'd have to roll a D10 again. Because not all cards say that. Okay? Through some of the rules to kind of talk about things, and again, talking about the hero cards. So there's your starting life, your starting defense, and then when you have to do a might check, this person would get a +5 to the check. Damage bonus. So when he hits something, that's what goes towards his damage. So you get a +2. His power points that he gets to use, and then his stride is his movement. As you can see that. And then his skills are ecology and nerve. So that's where you get the bonuses there. Alright, and then on the back is the ghost form. Well, one thing that's really nice about these cards is it shows you what miniature goes with it. Okay, then you have the Avenging Madman, the ghost points, defense, so 34, might, +3, damage bonus 2, and then stride is 4. And then you have these extras over here. So like for 1 power point, you get to do energy drain. For 3 power points, you do the empathetic anger and so forth. It says ghosts have the ethereal status. Then you have the Arcanist, and then a Telepath, and then I showed some of the other ones in another video. Okay, and then the creatures and afflictions. The bosses are considered afflictions. And so you have a couple different things here. You have some cards that kind of give you how things go, encounters, characters, and ghosts. So that gives you the rundown. 2 one-hand weapons. So you can equip with 2 one-handed weapons. So it talks about that there. So that's cool. It's like a reference sheet. That would come help in handy, which we'll refer to these when we play the game. Alright, so Restless Spirit. Actually, I'm going to skip over these and go to the Skirmish cards first. Alright? And then they have some more Affliction cards in the back. It shows you what miniature it goes to. If you notice, the Skirmishes have no miniature because you don't actually fight with a map. That's when you do your adventuring. So a lot of this game is RPG based, but once you get to a significant part of the story, that's when you pull out the map, which I'll explain more later, because I'll go through that before we actually play and how that all works. And so you have the creature name up here, and then you have the portrait of it, the character count. So for instance, this says 2 for 2-player game. When it does damage, it's going to roll a d4. On a 3 or 4-player game, it's going to do a d6. If it does 5 players, it's doing 2d4s. So I think it's really neat. And I'll show you what the other cards look like too. And then down here, reading what says Skirmish counter tokens. You would put the Skirmish counter tokens here on this track. And the coins, you would win from winning the fight. And then Skirmish power here. And then the might. At dusk it gets +0, at twilight it gets +5, at midnight +10, and nightmares +15. So based on
the road events and stuff, because that's where the skirmishers have. So you can have a skirmish on the road or off the road, and so the off the road is where it gets more dangerous. Alright, so then I'll show you some of these cards, because these cards and the Affliction cards, and I think the Affliction cards are the ones that are more in red here, and they each have different symbols in the corner, and so do the Skirmish cards. So like here it says creature type, and so some cards are going to give you advantages or disadvantages of creature types, so that's important to know that. So skirmish counter adjustments. I guess I'll talk about this first here. So it says sometimes you are told to skirmish with a skirmish counter at maximum. This means that you would start the skirmish with a counter at the maximum for the number of characters playing. And so it says using the Highwayman as an example, you are told to set the counter at maximum with 2 characters playing. The highest the counter would be set is at 4. So there. Alternately, if you were told to skirmish with 1 plus the plus 1 to the counter, it can exceed this number. And then it says that it would be a total of 5. You can never exceed the maximum shown on the card. For the Highwayman, no matter the number of characters or the modifier, you can never exceed 8 on the counter. And so the way this is determined by the number of characters is here. So the 2 is a 4. I mean, that's the damage it's going to do too, but it's going to be a max of 4. And then for the 3 and 4 players, it's going to be a max of 6. So that's where these are coming in. Okay. And as we go through a session, as we go through somewhat of a playthrough of how these components work, I'll explain this more in depth. Alright, so then we go on an adventure, we will actually be facing real monsters here. And so I guess each side does have a skirmish side. That's right. So we also went through these. And so on the skirmish side, there's no miniature symbol because there's no miniatures to be used. So again, the Vita, well, the health, is set by the number of players. So 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you notice, they go up by 4 each time. And so if you had enough characters, I don't see why you couldn't play with more than 5 characters. You may have to add some more hit points to the monsters other than another 4 points just to make it a little more difficult. But then again, here is what's called the occultist. Oh, hold on, sorry. Getting ahead of myself. The might. It just says it scales the difficulty of the creature. And then here it says lore and coins. And so when you defeat a monster, each character is going to get 20 lore and 5 coins. There's no worrying about it's going to drop coins, who's going to get it, how's it going to be divided. Everyone gets 20 lore and everyone gets 5 coins. And then the powers here. And this is based on, looks like a D10 roll. And do bear with me, I have not been through the rules completely with these cards. I have been with some of the other cards. And so I'm just going based on what I remember what I was looking at. And then companion cards. Actually, I'll go to the artifact cards first. So the artifact cards are going to be found throughout the world of Folklore. Okay, you have the back of the card, the image, the name, what it does, and then where it goes. And then this is considered the story artifact symbol identifier. So there's the story. Looks like they're all going to have a book. It says denotes if artifacts is awarded as part of a story or discoverable through other means. All core game artifacts are story artifacts. Okay, so these are all story artifacts. However, I did pick up the artifacts in Demon Pack, I think it was, and that maybe has different cards. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Okay, so I'm not going to take it out of the bag, but as you can see here, it does not have the book icon, but it does tell you where it goes, and these are the artifacts that come with the Demon and Artifact pack. As you can see, there's various here. It tells you, like, basically just equipment that you would wear, artifacts. So now going to the militia companions, and when you die, you lose your companions too. So absorption. It says absorption 1 from nature, attacks, and snares. So they give you buffs, or gives you bonuses. So that's cool. And then, again, more bonuses and buffs. I'm not going to open that pack. And then there's also in the back of the book, I mentioned before, but there's an index. Okay, and then a couple pages back, there's actually a keyword section that tells you what all the keywords are. So that's really great. You don't have to search for them, you just go right to the back of the book. And then there's tarot cards. It says, Gypsy tarot cards stay with characters even if they die again. Each character can receive a maximum of 2 tarot cards. These cards hinder characters and should be avoided if possible. The only way to get rid of a character, it says, the only way to rid a character of a tarot card is to meditate at the standing stones and pay the specified price. If a tarot card is removed in this manner, return it to the tarot deck and reshuffle. And you get a tarot card for dying, if I remember correctly. And so it says the Hermit, you may not have companions, obviously. This one is death. Upon death, you do not assume ghost form, but instead immediately enter limbo. That would suck. -3 max Vita, the Hanged Man. Various negative effects as a result of dying. So you want to avoid these like the plague. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and put these back in the bag. That way I can move them out of the way without fear of them spilling all over the place. Alright, I'm going to pull these out. These are the trackers. And so, I'll just get a hero here, a hero here. Alright, and so there's Vita Tracker, which would go here. And so let's say this little arrow here, so you can't see it. This little arrow here points to your life tracker. So if I can move it closer to the camera so you guys can see. Let me zoom in a little bit so you guys can see better. So let's say you start at 30 health. I mean, obviously she says it starts at 22, but I just want to show an example of how this works. So you'd have this point to 30 there. Then when you lost life, you'd go down. Roll it over, down, down, down. Okay, and then you have your PowerPoint tracker, which it makes little to no sense to have these on both sides. So you just have individuals. And so then you would actually put that on 5 since you start with 5, and then as you use them, you move them down. Here, I'll move it to this side so you can see. So, and the back side of them. Okay, so you would move those from 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 as you use them.
Okay, and then the foes get their own. Alright? And I think this is designated by the number of players in the game, or sorry, how many monsters are in the game. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's weird. I'm only counting 8 of the health. Oh, here's some. 8, 9, 10. Oops. Beater tracker, beater tracker, beater tracker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So, yep. Enough for 5 players. But I could always make copies if I wanted to have other players. So, okay, let's say I have this restless bear here. I'm going to back up a little bit. Okay, so this says left foe tracker. So this is going to go here. A bottom foe tracker. And there's a red and a purple. I'm guessing the purple's for the Affliction, and then you have the regular monsters. So here, again, bottom foe tracker, so I'm not going to worry about that. Right foe tracker, so there. Another right. And then there's going to be a top foe tracker. And there's going to be another left, as you can see. And so that distinguishes which monster you're fighting. That's very helpful, I think. Instead of having to make separate piles with each miniature that's going along, you might just indicate the miniature by something to show which one is number 1, which one is number 2, number 3, and then you can indicate, or just say 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then that's the tracker that keeps track of the hit points of those monsters. Really cool mechanism, by the way. Alright. And then last but not least, I'll put these back so I don't lose those either. I have the road event cards. And I'm just going to kind of go through these because you'll figure out more as we get into the game. All right. There's the road event cards, which I'll set here. Okay, and these are the road. That was the off-road. Oh, sorry. These are the off-road cards. That's why I had that set up like that. Okay. These are the road events. Those will get off-road events. Okay. And so on off-road event, it's going to depend on the day and nighttime. As you can see, road events. And so you have the day. Ancient devices. There's some flavor text here. One character may pass Archaeology 6 success. You impress the mystics among them and gain the mystic companion. Night. There are predators. Some flavor text. If you wish to hide, the leader must pass Trickery 5. Which, if you don't have the bonus, you still roll the D10, but you just don't get any buffs, to that, and bonuses to the roll. If you fail or do not wish to make the skill check, skirmish with werewolf. So then you'd have to pull out the werewolf card and skirmish with it. And every time you move and you stop your movement on the road, you will draw one of these. So that's a really cool feature. So you never know what's going to happen when you're on the road traversing the world. Okay. And then the off-road cards says when movement ends on the world map, which we'll go through these cards more when I have the world map out. I just want to kind of discuss them. The group is on a off-road area and must draw an off-road event card. This card usually poses a greater threat or greater risk for the group because the balance is weighted towards the negative. Moving through off-road spaces is usually a good shortcut and sometimes required to achieve an objective, but there is risk. Off-road event cards are choice-driven and double-sided. They should be drawn from underneath the cover card, so you would put this on top of the deck like that, and then you would draw the card from there. And use cards placed them back on the bottom. The front of the card provides a narrative and a choice to be made by the characters. Do not flip the card until a choice has been made. Okay,
And so the leader, I do believe each chapter, I can't remember, I have to go back through the rules, each chapter, or certain things happen that signify when the leader changes to the next person. And when there's combat, which we'll go through, one person to the left of the leader will control the monsters and what they do, and the person to the right has a job that they have to complete too. But anyways, so you would choose, and the leader would get final say. Okay, and that's in any direction they want to move, anything that they choose. And so that was one thing I do remember about the game, is that the leader has final say. Okay, so here you would say you choose choice 1, you'd roll a d6, and then either of these happens, or you do choice 2, and then you have to do this. So for example, it says choice 1. Pursuing the lights, we entered a small wooded glade. Within were tiny will-o-wisps dancing in midair. They surrounded us and began to glow brighter. So choice 1, roll a d6 on a 1 through 3. Their light is soothing, burning away your pains. All characters may remove 1 negative status and take a free rest action without a skirmish. Okay, or 4 through 6. The lights belong to the glowing spirits of the dead. Skirmish with the restless spirit. Okay, choice 2. We hid in the black of night and watched the lights slowly disappear, leaving us without a sense of direction. All characters without equipped light sources must pass Trickery 6, or receive 1d6 snare damage due to tripping over the underbrush. So, kind of neat little flavor there. And then on the back, here, if I flip this over, night lights, because that's what this one's called, I think. It says we had to make a choice. Oh, okay. I had this backwards. So, sorry. The night lights is what the card should be called. They should have like an indicator on here, like front and back. Off-road event. I guess I do, because it says off-road event here. So all these cards would have to be this way up. It says, as we traveled at night, we saw several white lights bobbing slowly in the air ahead. And then you can choose to investigate the lights or hide in the darkness. And then that's when you flip this over, and then you have choice 1 or choice 2. So, kind of got ahead of myself. So, excuse me for that. Bear with me. Still learning the game. If you have any questions, comments, go ahead and comment them down below. I'll try to answer any questions I can as I go through the rules. If you have a question about a specific card, please comment down below. I will look at the rules and tell you the best scenario of working with that card or working through that card. So, I think that's all the cards for right now. I went through the on-road cards, and the off-road cards. Went through some of the monster cards, and went through some of the hero cards, and then the stat booklet, the starting booklet, world event cards, companions, the trackers, prayers, rituals, artifacts, items, abilities. So I think I've covered all the cards. So stay tuned. If you have not seen my other videos, I have a video of going through all the components, showing the miniatures, or some of the miniatures. I have a video of how to build a character, and then I'm going to be doing one on combat rules and how that works. I'm going to be doing another video on traversing through the world, and then if there's anything else I missed, I'll do another video for that, and then I'll finally go through and do a small little playthrough. I don't know yet if I'll do a whole story or just a part of a chapter, because I don't want to disclose too much and ruin it for anybody. And then after that, I will go ahead and do my final review. So, thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.